I didn't die. I was just caged in a golden prison one built by my own daughter. From the wide bay window, the manicured gardens of Rosewood Senior Living looked immaculate. Spring sunlight spilled across the trimmed hedges like something out of a glossy brochure. But Roy Hale knew better. The silence wasn't peace, it was insulation. Soundproofing against outrage, against resistance. He sat in a leather armchair that looked expensive, but felt clinical. The thermostat was set to a perfect 72, and yet he shivered. Not from the air, but from the void. Something was wrong. No, everything was wrong. 2 weeks ago, he was tending tomatoes in his backyard, fixing the gutters, and meeting old engineering colleagues at a small diner. Now he was in a place that smelled of antiseptic and sounded like someone else's idea of rest. The transitions weren't voluntary, and they weren't logical. That disturbed him more than the setting. The door creaked open, breaking his train of thought. Nurse Jenna entered, her uniform crisp and spotless. She smiled out of habit, not empathy. "Mr. Hale, good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Define well," Roy muttered. She chuckled, tone rehearsed. "You're sharp like always. By the way, your daughter Olivia's visiting soon." "Isn't that lovely?" Roy's brows furrowed. Olivia visits weren't her style. Not unless they served a legal purpose. He said nothing. After a quick check of vitals and a plastic cup of pills, Jenna left. Roy stared at the unopened medication. What was in them? Did he need them? He moved to his drawer to retrieve his tablet, only to find the screen greeted him with a locked message. "Account suspended. Please contact your administrator." He blinked. Tried again. Same message. He stood pulled on a cardigan and walked toward the hallway, intercepting Jenna just before she disappeared around the corner. "My bank account is locked. Do you know anything about that?" he asked. "Oh," she said, voice light. "I think your daughter handled all that. You don't have to worry about finances anymore." He didn't respond, just nodded. But something inside shifted. Half an hour later, Olivia and Marcus arrived. Olivia walked like a closing argument, smooth, deliberate, and cold. Her smile was a paper mask. Marcus wore business casual and charm like a second skin. "Roy," he said with warmth that felt manufactured, "we thought it was best for your well-being to streamline some of your responsibilities. Finances the house? You need rest." "I don't recall authorizing any of this," Roy replied. "Don't worry," Marcus said smoothly. "It's all perfectly legal. Power of attorney, medical recommendation, and some paperwork you signed." Roy's gaze locked on him. "I didn't sign anything, at least not knowingly." Olivia placed a hand on her husband's arm. "Dad, you've had moments. We're just trying to protect you. Protect him from what freedom they didn't stay long. Just enough to appear caring and confirm control." After they left, Roy returned to his room. He opened the bottom drawer where he'd kept his personal medical documents, now neatly organized in a binder he didn't remember assembling. He flipped through, then paused. One page caught his eye, a signed physician's statement diagnosing him with mild cognitive decline. His own signature stared back at him, wrong slant, shaky penmanship, and one letter missing. It was forged. His jaw clenched. He reached for his old leather notebook and began jotting. Forged signature, falsified diagnosis, bank access revoked, next target the house. He paused, then underlined the last line twice. That night, sleep eluded him. Roy sat in the dark, the only light coming from the hallway outside. Voices whispered near the doorway. He moved closer. Jenna's voice soft, hushed. "Yeah. He doesn't suspect a thing. Everything's going according to plan. He doesn't suspect a thing. Everything's going according to plan. Being locked in a retirement home doesn't mean I've surrendered. I once designed industrial control systems, and now I'm building one to take back my life." Roy Hale sat on the edge of his bed, unmoving, as Nurse Jenna laid out his evening medications in a neat row of color-coded tablets. He nodded like usual. But this time he slipped home. Later that night, he crushed it on a tissue and studied the powder under the lamp. It was the yellow one, the one that blurred his vision and made him. It was never about health. It was about control. He began keeping a log hidden behind the baseboard beneath his bed. Dosage patterns, side effects. The days Olivia called, the days she didn't. By the fifth entry, a pattern emerged. He was groggy after every Tuesday. Marcus's name popped up in the visitor logs every Tuesday. Coincidence, Roy staged a headache the next morning. It's pressure behind the eyes, he told Jenna. Maybe I should get some fresh air or a walk anywhere off this property. After some discussion and paperwork, Jenna agreed to escort him to a therapeutic outing at the local library. They arrived by shuttle, just Roy and Jenna. She hovered near the fiction shelves. Roy feigned interest in a book on Civil War history. When her back turned, he slipped into the computer room and inserted a small, cracked USB stick into the port. He typed with the precision of a man who still remembered his secondary passwords from a decade ago. Within seconds, he logged into a backup email account one Olivia didn't know existed. He typed, Ellen, need your help. Can you check if anyone's been by my house lately? Any changes to the mortgage or title? I can't reach my bank. Something's off, Ellen replied 3 hours later. Roy read her message back in his room screen, brightness lowered. Roy, I thought it was strange. 2 men with suits were outside your place on Friday. One had a real estate clipboard. Also, your front yard now has a small, for viewing only sign. Discreet, but there. Roy exhaled through his nose. Marcus was already prepping the house for sale, behind his back, before the papers were even dry. He dug deeper. That night, he retrieved a crumpled paper tucked into the back of a medication folder, a file he wasn't supposed to see. It listed his name under a medical conditional property transfer. The date 3 months ago, a full 2 weeks before the doctor claimed his cognitive decline had suddenly begun. That meant Marcus had filed transfer documents before Roy was ever declared unfit. That was fraudulent. He just needed to prove it. He began journaling. Not in English. Not plainly. Roy used engineering symbols and shorthand from his days designing safety fail-safes in oil refineries. Pressure ratios became dollar figures. Time delays equaled court deadlines. If anyone found his notes, they'd think he was drafting a technical spec sheet, not laying legal traps. He logged it all Thursday, 180 mg. Side effect fatigue. Visitor pattern aligns with dosage changes. Observed mortgage file signature mismatch probable. Witness Ellen, unofficial asset movement. That night, Jenna passed by again carrying her clipboard. Roy heard her pause outside. He waited. Nothing. Then a soft click, the sound of his door unlocking again briefly. Something placed. Something checked. He pretended to sleep, but he knew. They were listening. He would need to encode every word, every plan. Later, he cracked open his journal and wrote, "They think I'm not mentally competent on paper, but I'll make them realize even one signature can be a trap. They think I'm not mentally competent on paper, but I'll make them realize even one signature can be a trap." A trap begins to take shape the moment the prey believes it controls the game. Ellen slipped it into his coat pocket between books during a silent reading session, an old Nokia phone, slightly scratched but with a battery and a prepaid number already loaded. She didn't say a word. She just nodded once, and Roy nodded back. Back in his room, Roy buried the phone under a pillow and waited until after midnight. Only when the hallways were empty and the security cameras rotated away did he switch it on. He typed out a short message to a contact Ellen had stored under ST and pressed, "Send, it's Roy Hale. I need legal eyes. Discreet. Urgent." Within 10 minutes, the phone buzzed back. Sarah Tanley. "What are we dealing with?" Roy snapped photos of the medical transfer forms, the guardianship documents, and his falsified signature, all captured under dim bedside lighting. He sent them without explanation. Another buzz. "This guardianship order is suspicious. No notarization, no psychological evaluation notes, and the transfer date overlaps with prior cognitive capacity. If this was coerced, we can challenge it." Roy felt his breath steady. The silence he'd once thought was defeat now felt like camouflage. He texted again. "Before this mess, I moved a portion of my funds to a secondary trust account. Olivia doesn't know it exists. I want that fund protected." "Understood. We'll begin a motion to review your capacity. If we time this right, we can invalidate the guardianship and freeze asset movement. I'll need a sworn declaration." Roy paused, then added, "I'll give it in person. Set up a meeting outside this place." Sarah sent him a secure file drop link. Roy downloaded it, encrypted the files with a code only an engineer would think to use, and buried the digital trail beneath a dummy Sudoku app. The next morning, he faked a low-grade fever. I think I'm reacting to something in the meds, he muttered to Jenna. The colors look wrong. I'm dizzy. Jenna, confused but concerned, brought in another nurse. By afternoon, the staff scheduled a medication reassessment. The rotation changed. Roy knew exactly what he wanted, new hands unfamiliar with the current protocol. It was time to blur the routine. No one should be able to predict when he was truly lucid and when he was merely observing. At the same time, he planted a new device hidden inside the spine of his notebook, a micro recorder with auto activation when voices were detected within a 3-foot radius. Marcus wouldn't suspect a thing. One step at a time, Roy reclaimed agency. At their next secret meeting in the library, Sarah entered through a rear staff door Ellen had access to. She wore plain gray slacks and glasses without frames, blending in like a staff consultant. I reviewed the entire chain, she whispered while pretending to sort through magazines. They want the court to see you as incapable. What they didn't expect is that they've woken a fox. Roy allowed himself a rare smile. Sarah handed him a printed document. This is a request for a court-supervised capacity reassessment. We'll deliver it through a third-party firm, and I want you to think carefully. Do you have any physical document that contradicts their story? Like a will, Roy nodded. An old version, before Olivia's name was even added. I think it's in a safety deposit box, or with Ellen's late husband's files. I'll trace it. Do that. We'll need every shred of leverage. As Sarah left, Ellen helped cover their exit with a wheelchair transfer to another building. It was smooth, quiet, but not unnoticed. Later that evening at a private security office across town, Marcus sat in front of a playback screen. On it, Roy's silhouette leaned close to Ellen, lips moving, eyes focused. Not idle talk, intentional. Marcus rewound the footage again and again. He narrowed his eyes. What is he hiding? All I ever needed was a gap in the system, and Marcus gave me that with his own smug overconfidence. Roy sat at the laminated wood desk, hands folded neatly as he faced the administrator. Across the table, a courier envelope sat sealed. Inside, a power of attorney request Marcus had slipped through legal back channels. Roy glanced at it once, then slowly looked up. Tell Marcus I'll sign it, he said calmly after my lawyer takes a look. It's standard protocol. The administrator, a young intern trying too hard to appear professional, hesitated. Well, it says urgent. Roy didn't blink. So is legal protection. 2 hours later, Roy stepped into Sarah Tanley's modest law office, shoulders square, jacket zipped. Ellen waited outside in the car, engine running. I brought something, Roy said, pulling a crisp folder from inside his coat. A copy of my original will. It has a notarized signature and a witness, Jordan Brandt from the county's records office. Sarah scanned it with methodical precision. Perfect. This predates Olivia's name. More importantly, Marcus isn't listed anywhere. This document could bury their claim. Roy leaned forward. I want every transaction involving my property frozen. Sarah nodded. We'll file an emergency injunction to halt any sale. But we need proof of attempted fraud. Roy opened his notebook. Look at this. Marcus tried to get me to sign over the deed under the guise of hospital logistics. I told him I'd review it with counsel. That gave me this window. Sarah began typing. We'll file under contested guardianship and financial misconduct. If Marcus has already listed the house, we'll catch it before it closes. Less than an hour later, the emergency motion was filed. Roy and Ellen didn't waste time. They drove in Ellen's old Prius to a side street a block from his former house. Ellen held her phone camera app open. Roy pointed to the front yard. There. A luxury SUV sat idling in the driveway. 2 men in tailored blazers paced the porch, measuring window spans, snapping photos, talking animatedly. One of them adjusted a gold cufflink as he gestured toward the backyard. Real estate surveyors, Roy muttered. Ellen snapped picture after picture, license plates, faces, timestamps. Got it. We'll cross-check with property listings. Back in the car, Sarah's name lit up on Roy's burner phone. He's already listed the house, she said. Premium listing. On a private broker's network. Description reads, ownership under resolution, title to be transferred post-clearance. Roy exhaled slowly. So he's preparing to sell before the court can object. Which Sarah replied means we hit him now. She placed a call to the brokerage office hosting the listing using her official credentials. "This is attorney Sarah Tanley," she said tone-clipped. "The property at 2148 Elmridge Drive is currently under legal dispute. Any representation of a pending sale is fraudulent. If your firm proceeds, you'll be complicit in property misrepresentation. I'm submitting a formal cease and desist." A pause. "Then yes, immediately." She hung up. "That'll shake him," she said to Roy, "but he'll retaliate. Be ready." Roy looked out the window, watching the setting sun cast long shadows across the streets he used to walk every evening. The feeling that something had been taken from him was giving way to something sharper direction. Back at his room in Rosewood, he slipped the phone into its hiding place beneath a loose floorboard. The game had officially begun. Miles away, Marcus Hale answered a call from the broker he'd charmed over whiskey tastings and thin smiles. "Mr. Hale, there's been a legal notice filed temporary hold on the sale due to asset ownership dispute. We'll need verified documentation of your authority to proceed." Marcus froze. The air around him seemed to thicken. His hand clenched the phone tighter. He didn't respond, but his gaze darkened. I once taught Marcus how to read financial charts. He thought he could use that knowledge to outmaneuver me. But what he had were replicas, what I had were originals. The online hearing opened with a hollow chime. The judge's face appeared on screen, stoic but attentive. Judge Beverly took one glance through the digital brief and adjusted her glasses. "Sarah was already mid-sentence, Your Honor. The guardianship and financial authority granted to Marcus and Olivia Hale were based on misrepresentation. We submit exhibit a proof of a secondary bank account under Mr. Roy Hale's name, predating any cognitive decline diagnosis." She clicked the link. A spreadsheet populated the screen. Dates, deposits, statements, clean, consistent, and never disclosed in the financial documents Marcus had filed when assuming control. Roy sat next to Ellen in her study, his hands resting calmly on the table. His eyes didn't move, but inside every nerve was focused. Judge Beverly glanced up. "And what's your explanation for this, Mr. Hale?" she asked. Marcus patched in from his office, tried a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "There must be some mistake," he said. "We were told all accounts were centralized. If something's missing," Sarah interrupted. "Exhibit B audio evidence recorded inside Mr. Hale's room. We've redacted medical personnel names for confidentiality. Please listen to the timestamp section, 3:47 a.m., March 10th. Click." The judge leaned closer as a grainy but distinct voice filled the virtual room. "Just give him half a tablet tonight. We need him quiet, not lucid." Ms. Olivia said no more incidents. Then silence. Then Judge Beverly's voice again, lower now. "Is that your voice, Ms. Olivia Hale?" Olivia's image flickered on screen. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Sarah pressed again. "In Exhibit C, tax filing discrepancies. Mr. Marcus Hale's income from March shows a $74,000 spike corresponding to a deposit from a shell real estate firm. Coincidentally, that same firm listed Mr. Hale's property without title clearance." Roy watched Marcus carefully, saw the jaw tighten the throat contract, but Marcus kept smiling. Judge Beverly set her pen down. "This court is issuing a temporary injunction. Guardianship rights are suspended, pending full investigation. Mr. Roy Hale is to be reinstated to his residence under the oversight of a neutral fiduciary." Roy felt something inside uncoil. Not victory yet, but momentum. After the call, Roy packed in silence. Ellen helped load the car. When he looked back at the Rosewood facility, he didn't feel anger. He felt clarity. Back at his old house, a court-appointed guardian met them on the porch. Roy nodded, politely entered, and walked into the living room. He sat where he used to read at dusk. The phone rang. He knew the number. "Think you've won?" Marcus hissed. "This is just the beginning." Roy's voice was steady cold. "No, Marcus. This is the ending of the family you tried to build on stolen ground." Click. Miles away in a condo paid for with other people's money, Olivia rounded on Marcus. How the hell did he get all that, she demanded. Marcus was silent. Then with a snarl, he threw his phone across the room. "It wasn't revenge I wanted, it was clarity and the right to choose how my story ends." The courtroom was larger than Roy remembered. Old timber, brass plaques. But the energy was different, charged with silence, attention, consequence. Roy adjusted the collar of his jacket, his hands firm and still. Beside him, Sarah stood poised as ever. Ellen sat 3 rows behind her presence, steady comforting. Judge Harlan entered. Cameras blinked silently. The courtroom wasn't just filled with people, it held weight. The weight of justice long delayed. Sarah stood. Your Honor, members of the court, we present the final findings of the independent investigation into Marcus and Olivia Hale's conduct regarding Roy Hale's estate and guardianship. She gestured toward the screens. A slideshow began. Exhibit D financial transactions reveal that Mr. Marcus Hale transferred over $200 from Mr. Roy Hale's accounts to offshore holdings in the Bahamas. Exhibit E shows the purchase of equity in Hailstone Holdings under a proxy account. Gasps. Exhibit F. A video flickered to life. It showed Olivia outside a clinic, pacing, phone clutched to her ear. Ellen had recorded it weeks ago. I don't care what his chart says. I need it to state cognitive decline. He must not have control, you understand me. You'll get your bonus, just sign it. Roy remained unmoving. Then slowly he stood. No one called him. No one needed to. I have something to say, he said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't waver. I am not a man of theatrics. I built machines, not drama. But when your daughter forges your consent to sedate you, when your home becomes a transaction, when your legacy becomes someone else's leverage, then yes, it's time to speak. He pulled out a folder. Inside, a notarized will. This is my final will and testament. He handed it to the bailiff. I hereby designate the majority of my estate to a trust for elder protection services in this district. My home, my only home, is hereby gifted to Ellen Porter, who will transform it into a community center for the aged and voiceless. He turned toward Marcus and Olivia. You took my silence as weakness, but I was building something while you were busy stealing. And now your house of lies will collapse because truth needs no disguise. Judge Harlan reviewed the documents. His gavel rose. This court hereby revokes all guardianship and financial authority from Marcus and Olivia Hale. Furthermore, the district attorney is authorized to begin criminal proceedings for elder abuse, financial fraud, and medical forgery. Marcus slumped. Olivia stood, panic blooming in her voice. This was all you, she yelled at Marcus. You pushed me. This was your plan. Roy didn't flinch. He only turned once, whispered, no one pushes a soul that's already for sale. That night, Roy stood beneath the porch light of his old house, now freshly painted with the words Hale Community Center, mounted in brushed steel. Ellen joined him, handing over a sketch of the new backyard garden plan. We'll put raised beds here, benches there, she smiled. Think it'll work? Roy looked up at the stars. Yes, he said quietly. This is the legacy I choose. I never wanted to fight my own family. But when they tried to write me off, I realized silence only feeds betrayal. Justice didn't roar, it moved quietly with precision, like an old man who knows exactly where to strike. Sometimes all it takes is one clear voice to expose a fortress of lies. So if you're being underestimated, remember you're not finished, just uncounted.